Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to my virtual interactive live. And today's virtual live is going to be Hurtful Exchanges. And the speaker of the morning will be Thais Love. Welcome, Miss Thais. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So good to see
How are
you
you?
all on this happy Monday morning. And so it's the first Monday in October, and I'm just really excited to be here. All of this month, being that October is significant for a couple of things, but this October is well, every October, but this October is Domestic Violence Month, as well as Cancer Awareness Month, as well as a Mental Health Awareness Month as well. So um, October is a heavy month. It's a great time of the year to just look at different issues that are occurring and get some awareness about it, some empowerment, and be able to work on these different issues. But in celebration of Domestic Violence Month, I'm going to be talking all during this month um, on Mondays about the different hurtful exchanges. A hurtful exchange is when two people or more they interact and they interact on a regular basis, daily, or just a regular, consistent basis. And during their interaction, hurtful things happen where one or both parties or more come away feeling a certain way, hurt or stressed just from the interaction, just from the exchange. Well, person A might say something, person B will say something back, and then a person A will respond to what person B says, and it's just a hurtful exchange. The interaction, the conversation winds up being hurtful. And we're going to be talking about different hurtful exchanges all month long. But today, I want to talk about when words hurt. When words hurt. And so, when words hurt, it's not a whole lot you can do about it. Um, there was an old saying that uh, I learned when I was in school. The saying was supposed to help me, when it was time for teasing, in school, children, they interact with each other, and sometimes they mean it, sometimes they really don't. But the words that they say and the words that they use and the manner that they use it can become hurtful to another child. So there was this saying, sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but names will never harm me. Um, it it was something that even I used to say when the children, other kids teased me or said something to me that I found offensive or hurtful. I would say that to kind of um, push away the hurt, or I would say that to, try to act like, well, what you said, I'm not even going to pay it any mind, or I'm not going to let those words hurt me. It's not true. You called me a name, but it's not true. And sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but names will never harm me. Um, that's something that I used to say to kind of use as a shield to repel the hurt of those words when the children were teasing me or they call me a name, um, that I didn't like, besides my own, things like that. But that statement is not true. We said it back then. We sometimes even say it now, but when we look honestly at it, people have said things to us when we were children, even now, that hurt. We long after the person has gone away, or you don't hear them, you're not in their presence, and they're saying those words to you any longer. You walk away carrying the thought of them saying those hurtful things long after you're no longer in their presence. You just, you play it over and over in your mind. And so today we want to talk about when words hurt, especially we're going to discuss verbal abuse. Verbal abuse. What is verbal abuse? How can you abuse somebody verbally? Well, I'm glad you asked. Verbal abuse is the use of words to direct it at someone to cause them to feel hurt, using words as a weapon to cause them to feel hurt, to cause to try to control them or intimidate them as well. So that is verbal abuse, the excessive use of words to try to cause to intimidate someone, to control them, get them to do what you want them to do, and to hurt them. So now there are different instances where verbal abuse happens. In fact, it happens so often that a lot of times people that are engaging in this kind of activity, they're not even aware that they are verbally abusing someone. They're not aware of how much hurt they are um, pouring out on someone else. A lot of times when someone is in a verbally abusive situation or they're hearing words that's hurting, they often don't say anything. They don't say, you know what, could you stop because you're hurting me with your words. They often don't say that. What they'll do is kind of like what I did. They might say something back, in retaliation. Okay, that word hurt, so I'm going to throw a word back at you. Or they might do like I did, simply try to shirk it off. Well, names will never harm me. So whatever you say, there was another saying, I'm rubber, you're glue. It bounces off of me and it'll stick onto you. You know, um, just different things that I used to say as a kid to kind of not absorb the hurt from the words or the names that someone else was saying to me. So that's what I did, and you might have done something similar as well. But at the end of the day, even after you've finished or walked away from that particular hurtful exchange, you still carry the hurt of those words. You still carry the hurt of that exchange. And you carry it long after the exchange is over, days after, weeks after, sometimes years after, depending on how excuse me, how hurtful the situation was, how hurtful the words were. So, and verbal abuse can happen anywhere at any time. You know, a hurtful word exchange, often they're not planned, but sometimes they are. Okay. So, um, and you know, it usually happens in school, at work, even at home. Who are people who verbally abuse others? It could be anybody. It could be a loved one, family member, close friend. Um, could be someone in authority. Could be a teacher. Could be um, your supervisor at work. It could be anyone. Anyone can. It could be you. Anyone can wind up being a verbal abuser, and anyone can wind up being verbally abused. Okay? And so today we're going to just talk about that, and I just want to share with you and bring to your attention um, the some of the things that happen that can occur just from having a verbally abusive exchange. And I call it an exchange because sometimes it's both parties in the conversation that's participating in that kind of activity. A lot of times it's one person directing the hurtful words to the other. Um, or it might start out as an argument or an exchange where both people are talking, but then one person gets a couple of words in more than the other person, and the hurt from the words would make the other person, the one being attacked, so to speak, makes them either stop talking or try to walk away, or um, they don't have this. They're not verbally fighting back with the same energy as the verbally aggressive person. One person is more aggressive with their choice of words and with the way that they're saying the words than the other. Um, and so there is it's an exchange, but it soon turns into, a one-sided exchange where one person, gets off more words than the other, and that the other person just, stops talking or stops participating in the exchange. So, um, verbal abuse, like I said, it's very, very painful. Long after the exchange, the person who's hurt, it could be both people hurt, and both people who are in the conversation or in the exchange walk away with that hurt, and neither one of them says, what, stop, you know um, that was below the belt, or you didn't have to say that. Neither one of them say. They just go back and forth, arguing or continuing the uh, hurtful exchange. And so, like I said, it could be anybody, could be anybody. But a lot of times, verbal abuse starts at home, starts right at home. Um, Children very often are exposed to verbal abuse very, very early in life. Little children, um, they get verbally abused and they are so young that they don't even have the wherewithal to try to defend themselves or, you know, get out of the situation. Um, they just stand there and, have to just deal with it as best they can. And a lot of times, young children, they have no defense against the verbal abuse. They don't even know that that's what's happening to them. Only thing they know is that they feel a certain way. Their bodies might react to uh, whatever the words are that's coming at them, and they're trying to make sense of it, or get away, or try to understand, well, why is this person talking to me this way, you know um so yeah, very often, and I'm sure that uh, we've all experienced some sort of verbal abuse in some kind of way or another. You might say, no, not me. I never experienced verbal abuse, and I never participated in a verbally abusive conversation or activity. You might say that simply because a lot of times when verbal abuse happens, we don't give it the same regard as other abuses or other um, painful situations. We don't give it the same regard, and we don't give it the same regard as other situations because we're always speaking, talking to someone. We're always using words. We need to use words in order to communicate, and so when we're talking, we could be talking to a loved one, friend, anyone. We are simply, we look at it as we're simply expressing ourselves, or I'm giving that person a piece of my mind, you know. And very often, as we speak, we don't always think about the words that we use in our casual conversation. And so we just speak, we flow. We're not always aware of the way the words that we use are received by others. And so we could be in a casual situation or a very mundane, regular situation, and we could be just speaking and not realize that our words are hurting others that's in the room. Our words are causing different reactions because we can only control what we're saying. We can't control how the other person or persons will receive those words. So excuse me. If no one says anything or brings it to our attention, very often we'll continue on with our pattern of speech, um, not knowing that we said something that someone uh, perceived as being hurtful or directed towards them. And so we have to be more mindful of the words that we use. But um, in terms of verbal abuse, I said all of that to bring to your attention how easily you can find yourself in a situation where you got hit by words, you got attacked, um, or caught off guard by something that someone said, and you found it hurtful. Um, Sometimes when that happens, we, we might feel anger, and then we want to retaliate. So then we try to think of something to say back to that person to cause them to have the same kind of feeling or emotion that we're experiencing, based on what they said previously. Um, the hurt is still the hurt. It doesn't take away the hurt. Even if you say something in retaliation, you're still hurting, because of whatever the person said to you. And retaliating doesn't take away the initial hurt that you felt. It just lets the other person know maybe that, I didn't like what you said, so I'm going to say something back to you. And then the other person not being aware that what they just said, you didn't like it, or you took it a certain kind of way, and but they know that you just said something to them that was hurtful to them, and then you go back and forth with each other, just putting more hurt upon hurt and anger and all of that, and soon that the communication becomes toxic. So, and when this occurs over and over again, you realize that you're in a situation where there's verbal abuse going on, verbal abuse from both parties. Okay. Um, and verbal abuse is very, very detrimental, very detrimental, because the way we interpret and receive the hurt from the words determines a lot of what we do next after we've heard those words. It determines our actions. Sometimes when we hear something, a word thrown at us that's painful, we might simply react, out of instinct. We won't even think about, okay, what, you said that to me? Okay, I'm gonna say blah blah blah, and you throw the word back at them, and try to cause them harm. That's that tit for tat thing. And that's not good. That's not good. That's not good for communication. That's not good for your relationship. That's not good. That ruins the rest of your day, your mood, all of that, simply from uh, that verbal exchange. So, but verbal abuse, like I said, is very, very damaging. Uh, did you know that when it doesn't take a long time to see the effects of verbal abuse? In fact, it happens so quick that oftentimes you're not even aware that you've been affected. One thing you know is, well, I was mad when he or she said that. And so I said something back, and that was the end of it. That was the end of the conversation or the exchange, but that was not the end of the hurt. Uh, Someone only has to say something to you one time that you can be you consider hurtful, and that stays with you a very, very long time. Someone can call you a name uh, that's, hurtful, and you would think about that name. You would think about that person saying that to you over and over and over and over again. Even if you don't see that person ever again, you still, that's lodged in your mind. Oh, that person called me that. If that person called me that, it must be other people that think the same thing. And you continue to play that word or those words over in your mind over and over again, and it becomes hurtful over and over and over again. And verbal abuse is really, it's really harsh, um, because of that. Because we hear words all the time. We receive the conversation, the words all the time, and then we play it back over and over in our minds again and again and again, and it just causes more hurt, more confusion. Um, we try to work through it, but it stays with us um, for a long time. So yeah, verbal abuse is not something to be taken lightly. We tend to, like I said earlier, disregard it simply because talking is a everyday occurrence. It happens so often that we it's out of habit. When somebody says good morning, we might say good morning back. It's something that we do all the time. Use words. But just because we use words all the time like that, it doesn't mean that we can just say whatever we want to say, or not think about the words that we say, because words do hurt people. They hurt people, and when you're yelling, it's even more so. It's even more so. So, when does what are some examples of verbal exchanges where the words hurt? What are some examples or instances where you have an exchange, a conversation, and verbal abuse happens? Uh, you ever considered that? Well, verbal abuse it happens so often that we don't even see it as verbal abuse. We kind of, we just deal with it, and oh, he's just talking to me. Oh, he's speaking out of anger towards me, or he said something to make me mad, so I'm gonna say something to make him mad back, and then we're done. No, it's not. It's not that simple. It's so much more deeper than that. Different instances or examples where the conversation often turns into a verbally abusive situation happens all the time. That verbal abuse happens, like I was stating earlier, to children and adults when there's teasing happening. So, and teasing is when someone will find a fault, or find something different about you, and try to make a joke about it. And they keep doing it over and over and over again. Teasing happens a lot in school with children, young children in junior high school. Uh, There was a lot of teasing in junior high school. At least that's when I experienced it. Because in junior high school, you're at that awkward age where your body is going through different changes, and uh, you're in the midst of puberty or the onset of puberty, and so some parts of your body is growing, you know, faster or larger than others, and there's your body is in a transitional stage. You're outgrowing your child body, and you're um, having a more mature body. So your body is going through different changes due to puberty and things of that nature. So is your mind. But you know, in junior high school, because you're going through all of that, there's a lot of, you're awkward, your clothes don't quite fit the same or fit right. And, you know, other kids, they're going through it right alongside you, but because they, notice, oh, uh, Johnny, look at him, he has on the high waters. And you remember what high waters were. They were pants that, they're too short. So they are at your ankle or above your ankle. They're not resting on top of your shoe. So the pants aren't fitting properly because you've outgrown them. So they're too short. And, the child, he or she can't help it. They put the pants on. The pants are too short now, but they wore them anyway. And when they get to school, the kids notice it and start teasing them about it. So that's teasing. Teasing very often um, incurs instances of verbal abuse, and it's the repetitive teasing, um, where they tease you over and over again, or the children, say it loud, or every time they see you, they say it, the whatever the teasing is, and it's very, very unpleasant. It's embarrassing. Um, it can you can have feelings of dread. Oh, I don't want to go to school. I don't want to go to that class because then I'm going to see so and so always teases me, you know. Um, oh, Ma, why did you make me wear that dress? I hate that dress. All the kids are gonna tease me. So that's teasing. Teasing is one example of a situation where verbal abuse occurs or can happen. Another situation with verbal abuse can happen is when you're telling jokes. When you joke on each other, you might make a joke about someone's personality or a physical feature of theirs, and everyone laughs. That everyone laughs. And they might think it's funny, but the person who's being joked on is not laughing, or they may not think it's funny and it's hurtful, but they might just try to go along with the situation, um, just so that they can get past it. But that hurt is there. Sometimes jokes are very hurtful, and when you are the object of the joke, um, it it's it's a hurt in a different kind of way, because everyone else is laughing, and they're laughing not with you. So sometimes joking can turn into a verbally abusive situation. Um, Arguments. You're at home. and you and a family relative, don't see eye to eye or don't agree on a particular subject, things get really, really, you and during that argument, things can get really, really emotional, very angry, very toxic, and that family member might say something to you out of anger that's really, really hurtful. And then you want to continue the argument, but then you say something just as equally hurtful, or you try to say something that is equally hurtful. And so when you're having an argument, depending on the subject matter or depending on the emotional status, the emotional state of the parties arguing, verbal abuse can happen. If there's a lot of anger, um, the argument escalates and becomes very, very angry, and the two people engaged in the argument can become very aggressive with their words, and so uh, there's a lot of hurtful things being said back and forth. So arguments are a place where verbal abuse can happen. Hurtful words can get thrown at uh, each other because you're angry. So that's arguments, teasing, um, joking. Uh, Another place where verbal abuse can happen is when an adult or child is receiving instruction. Um, Someone might be trying to show you how to do something, and you might be having difficulty um, grasping the instruction. And the person that's instructing you may get frustrated and say something or call your name, or you know, like express their frustration with the fact that you're having a hard time learning or grasping the information that they're giving you, and they might say something that will hurt you. Um, that's and they say it on purpose to kind of jolt you so that you would pay attention closer to what they're saying, or you will do what it is that they're asking you to do um, faster or something like that. That's a another situation where verbal abuse uh, can happen. Now, um, when I stated earlier, verbal abuse, along with all abuses happen, abusive situations happen because with one or with two or more parties, it happens because one party wants to try to control or intimidate the other party or hurt the other party. It's a abuse. The whole thing about abuse is there's a control factor. One is um, impacting the other person in a forceful way. That's how you know it's abuse. And the other person, even though they might be interacting with that person, their interaction or the actions that they are doing in retaliation, what have you, they the person that's being abused, their impact in the situation is not the same. Their level of aggression is not the same as the person that is doing the abusing. And so there's a control, there's uh, a power play situation there where one person, tries to enforce or impact the other person in a forceful way to get that other person to either give up, succumb, submit to what the abuser wants them to do. Okay. And that happens in any abusive situation. It's a situation. Abuse entails power, control, and excessive um, power and control, and hurt, abuse, harm. Okay, so that's what any sort of abuse, but particularly in verbal abuse and verbal abusive situations, you use words to achieve that. You use the words in such a way that you um, aggressively impact on another person. You aggressively cause them hurt. You aggressively cause them to feel intimidated. You aggressively um, uh, force them to back down or succumb or allow you to do do what you want with them. When you're verbally abusing someone, you cause them to change their actions. What are some of the effects of verbal abuse? I'm glad you asked. Some of the effects of verbal abuse are, studies show that in small children, in children, when children are verbally abused, it changes the neurological setup in their brains. You can say one hurtful word that can impact a child in such a way that it changes the entire neurological setup in their brain. One word. And that setup is changed forever until the next word happens. And then it's changed again. Then the next word. So each time a child experiences hurt from by words, the child goes through that over and over and over again. And so verbal abuse literally impacts and puts an imprint on a child's mind about themselves, about others, and that imprint stays with that child for years and years and years and years, even until adulthood. So um, that's in small children, in children. And so when a parent is speaking to a child, you know, you see it all the time. The child might be, displaying unpleasant behavior, and the parent gets frustrated, and the parent decides to yell at the child, "Johnny, get over here!" You know, um, Johnny stops whatever he's doing and he comes over to the parent. And then the parent starts to, speak to the child in an angry way. "Well, didn't I tell you not to do blah, blah, blah?" And you keep doing it. What's wrong with you? You know, the parent may not realize that you realize the impact, how great the impact of those words are to Johnny. But the parent was frustrated, angry, maybe not pleased by the child's behavior, and the parent simply wanted to correct the child's behavior or change the child's behavior. And so the parent might yell at the child and, re-instruct the child and tell the child what he or she should be doing, or the behavior that the child should be expressing. And that's apparent to the child. Now, the parent, I'm sure, as a parent, you love your children. You want the best for them. You want to try to raise them correctly or successfully. But in that exchange, when you are, giving your child instruction and you're yelling at the child, or the words that you say, and even the way that you say what you say to that child impacts on that child, not just in that moment, but for the rest of that child's life. So, and that's an everyday occurrence. But parents they're not aware a lot of times that the words that they're saying, the way that they say those words, can be verbally abusive to the child. And so the child learns, okay, that's my mom or my dad. They're speaking to me in that way. I'm in trouble. I did the wrong thing. I did a bad thing. Okay, so I'm not going to do that anymore, so that I don't have to go through that again. And the child changes their behavior. But the hurt from those words is still with that child. That child internalizes that and keeps that all the way until they're adults. And then the next time, the child exhibits a different behavior, maybe, or maybe the parent is trying to instruct the child, on how to tie their shoe, or, something. It could be anything. And again, the child keeps doing it wrong or not doing it, and the parent will then say something to the child to try to motivate the child to do what the parent is asking. But at the same time, that child receives the instruction and hopefully, does what the parent is asking, but that child also receives that hurt behind the words that you used on the child, or even the tone. The thing about verbal abuse also is that they show that you can say that it's not only the words that you decide to use on a person that hurt, but you could be saying a simple sentence, but the tone that you say it in can be hurtful. I could be saying I love you. There's nothing hurtful about those words. I love you. But depending on the tone that I say it, oh, I love you. Yeah. Angrily, that simple sentence now takes on a whole different meaning. And there's hurt behind those words. And so, even though it's a simple sentence, I love you, the words themselves may not convey hurt, but the way the words were used carries that hurt with them and impacts the person. And so it's hurtful. Also, when you decide to use those words. You might, you might be in a situation where the other person can't even receive those words at the time because they're angry. Okay, you just got through yelling at the person and you had a really, really angry argument, and then at the end of the argument your last words is, I love you. That person is not going to take it, take those words in the same way, that you may or may not have meant it. They might look at it as, oh, you're being sarcastic. You don't love me. You just got through cussing me out. And then you're going to say you love me behind that? Really? I'm offended even more. So it's not only what you say, but it's also how you say it, and it's also when you say it, how often you say it, how not often you say it. All of that is encompassed in verbal abuse. And so another way words can be used to hurt, and another side of verbal abuse is the silent treatment. When you decide that you're not going to speak at all on the situation. You could be in the middle of an argument and things got, angry. Things start to get angry, and all of a sudden, the other person is arguing, and you just clam up. You just like, I'm not speaking anymore. I don't want to talk about it. When you give the silent treatment, meaning that you don't speak on that subject, or you stop speaking to that person or those people because you're upset or what have you for a long period of time, that is also verbal abuse. Because when you stop speaking like that abruptly, you don't the conversation stops, and you literally pull yourself out of participating in the discussion to try to, resolve whatever the issue is. Right smack in the middle of resolving the issue, or just trying to figure out what the issue is, you decide you are no longer going to speak. That is a form of manipulation. It's a power tactic also, where you decide, you know what? You want to talk about the situation and you want to say what you want to say. I want to say what I want to say too, but I'm not going to say anything. And when you do that, you cut off the conversation, you cut off the communication, and you cause the other person to kind of be in, confused and in limbo, wanting to resolve the situation, but they can't because you're not talking. The silent treatment is used to try to manipulate someone, or get them to let you have your way. So you will simply stop talking until the other person starts doing the things you want them to do, or acting the way you want them to act, in order to get you to start talking again to them. So, for example, you could be in uh, it could be a family member, and you you know the, you were in a conversation and the person said something that you found offensive, but you want that person uh, to uh, let you to agree with your point of view. And right after the person said something, sometimes it doesn't even have to be that they said something to offend you. Sometimes you just, feel like, you know what, I'm not going to even talk about it. I'm not even going to talk to you. And the other person is saying, oh, well, what do you want? What do you want from me? Okay. All right, what is it that you need? All right, so because I want to resolve this issue. And you're there like, and you're not talking. And the person, is at the point where they're begging you to talk, to begging you to let them know what it is that you want them to do, so that you all can talk again, and the communication can be back, can be back on. And you sit there and you don't say anything. The person is, trying to persuade you to speak to them or let them know. And then you say, oh, I'm not going to speak to you until you apologize. Apologize for what? Only thing I said was blah, 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 blah. Apologize, otherwise I'm not talking to you. And you continue not to talk to them until the person finally gives in, surrenders, submits, and say, okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize. And then you're like, oh, well, that's better. Now we can talk about so and so and so. And what I want you to do is take me over to the other side of Brooklyn, at night, because I don't want to take public transportation. And then the person does that for you because they don't want you to stop talking to them again. That's the silent treatment. It's when you use silence to try to get your way or get your point across. Oftentimes, you use silence to cause the person to do what it is that you want them to do. It's a form of manipulation, actually. And you manipulate the person because you get the person to the point where they're willing to do anything just so that you can talk to them, or they're going to talk with you and you know get you to stop withdrawing yourself from the conversation or what have you. And so they do whatever it is that you want because they don't want you to go into the silent treatment. So that's silent treatment, and that is a form of verbal abuse, the silent treatment. Okay. A lot of times you see the silent treatment being used amongst couples. You know, uh, the man, the one party might decide, okay, I want to go out, wants to go out and let's have dinner, and the other party might be angry with that person for something that happened earlier that day or maybe the day before. And um, person B is not aware that person A is angry with them about something that they did or said the day before. And they don't become aware of it until person B comes to person A and tries to talk to them, and person A says, oh, I'm not talking to you. I'm mad. And person B is like, what you mad about? I don't want to talk about it. And person B is there trying to figure out, okay, what did I do? What did I say? What, and they're reviewing over and over in their mind what happened previously and whatnot. What could possibly get person A so angry that they're angry and they don't want to talk, and person B is going through all of that, trying to figure it out so they can, you know, stop person A from getting angry with them. And so they're taking all these different actions, trying to figure it out. Well, what about this? Well, no, that's not it. Okay, what? And it's a form of manipulation. Person A is manipulating person B. Person B doesn't even know or may not be fully aware of what person A is even angry about. But person B doesn't want person A to be angry with them, so they are willing to do whatever so that person A is no longer angry with them. So the person B will change their behavior, change their mind about opinion or what have you, just so that they can remain in relationship and communication with person A. That's the silent treatment in a nutshell. And that happens a lot in with couples where one party wants to manipulate the other party to their way or get them to do something that um, person B doesn't really want to do, for whatever reason. That's the silent treatment is a part of verbal abuse. And so sometimes a parent might give silent treatment to the child or vice versa. Um, so the silent treatment um, is understand that, and it's real subtle. A lot of times people don't even know. Oh, I'm being manipulated. By the silent treatment. Really, only thing I wanted to do is just resolve the situation. Uh, I didn't want, and I don't want any arguments. I want to keep the peace. But, be also mindful that the silent treatment um, is a manipulation tactic to try to get someone to act or, um, decide like the other person. It's a manipulation tactic to try to control another person or persons. That's the silent treatment. But sometimes, especially in a very toxic relationship, where there's a lot of argument, verbal abuse, anger, talk, sometimes a person will use the silent treatment to try to stop the flow of the verbal abuse. Um, so sometimes when there's a angry exchange, verbal exchange, angry, you know, the one that the person that is hit with the hurtful words, sometimes they will just stop talking to make the argument stop and to stop the angry words because they're so hurt. And they'll stop talking so that they can get out of the hurtful situation, remove themselves. So sometimes people use the silent treatment as a form of protection or a coping mechanism when they are interacting with someone that verbally abuses them on the regular. So um, that also may happen. So you have to really look at the situation and try to understand why the person is being quiet, using the silent treatment. It could be doing that so that they won't further say something that will um, escalate the aggressive actions of the other person. They don't want to really tick that other person off because you know then the situation escalates and it might incur more violence, more harm. So they just be quiet. I'm not gonna say anymore to shut down the argument. So but when that happens, that is not verbal abuse. It's not being used in that way. The silent treatment in that way uh, 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 is being used to protect the person who is being abused, to try to give them some time to get out of the situation or remove themselves from the hurtful situation. So silent treatment, um, used in a manipulative uh, fashion, um, that is the verbal abuse. When you use it to try to control um, the actions of another person, when you use it to try to get the other person to um, do things your way or submit to you and what it is that you want to do. When silent treatment is used that in that way, yes, that is verbal abuse. Okay, so and like I was saying, verbal abuse can happen at any moment in time. It can happen um, in any kind of relationship. I mentioned verbal abuse happening in amongst couples, um, verbal abuse happening between parent and child, or in the household. Um, so at work, even you can be verbally abused at work. A supervisor can say some hurtful words to you, and that would make you intimidated or make you um, feel less than or want to submit to whatever that supervisor is telling you for fear that you would lose your job, for fear that you would um, get your pay docked. So you just deal with it, or try to to change your actions so that you're more in line with what that supervisor wants. Um, so that's verbal abuse in the workplace. The way the supervisor gives you your instruction or your assignment, it could be in a very sarcastic or condescending way. The supervisor could even uh, poke fun at you or joke with you in front of the other staff, and the other staff then laughs and you know laughs at you. You wind up not thinking that the joke is funny, feeling embarrassed, feeling exposed, feeling helpless. These are some of the feelings that you experience when you've been in a verbally abusive situation. And so that's verbal abuse even happening at work. It could be a coworker deciding that they want to joke about the way you look, or um, and cause you embarrassment and feelings of intimidation, so that you would just conform to what everyone else is doing, um, that empowers that person who's verbally abusing you. So That's verbal abuse in the workplace. Now there are the we talked a little bit about the effects, the impact of verbal abuse on children. We talked about how verbal abuse can impact a child's brain and totally change their neurological response to different things. Uh, Verbal abuse also um, can lead to depression. Um, it can lead to anxiety, stress. It can cause a person to want to self harm. Okay, and when I mean self harm, um, it might cause them to cut themselves or want to hurt themselves to try to deal with the pain of the hurtful words that's coming at them. Verbal abuse can lead to suicide, can cause people to want to commit suicide just to stop the hurt, stop the pain from those words. And um, verbal abuse also um, can lead to substance abuse, where people in their reaction or yeah in their reactions to the hurt stemming from the words that were said um, or constantly said to them, they react in different ways. But whichever way they react, they are simply trying to stop the hurt or ease the pain um, of the hurt from the hurtful words. So a lot of times people will then start abusing substances so that it makes them emotionally numb. So when they're around that person that verbally abuses them, they don't feel it in the same way. Or they don't feel it at all. It doesn't affect them in the same way. So, yeah, verbal abuse can um, lead to substance abuse. Someone who is constantly dealing with um, verbal abuse in an abusive situation, they can very often start having sleep disorders and eating disorders as well. And so, how do you know that you are experiencing verbal abuse, or what are the signs of someone that is uh, experiencing hurt from verbal abuse? I'm glad you asked. Some of the signs are anxiety. Person is anxious. When they get anxious or overly anxious about a daily routine or an activity that they um, used to love, and all of a sudden now they're really anxious about it. They're uncomfortable about, uh, Mom, I don't want to ride the school bus today. I don't want to go to school today. I don't want to go to school. You know. Um, so that's one sign that there's anxiety, apprehension about an activity or um, a routine that the person used to love or did often. Withdrawal, when you see a loved one, a friend suddenly just, withdraws socially. Yeah, they don't show up at the family events. They don't want to go and hang out anymore. They just stay in their house. They're not calling regularly. They're not picking up their phone. Um, there's some hurt there. There's somewhere dealing with that hurt from verbal abuse. Another thing, sleep disruption. You find that people who are suffering from the impact of verbal abuse, they have trouble sleeping. They don't sleep at a regular hour. Their sleep is often interrupted. They wake up, they have nightmares. Also, when you notice someone has had a change in their eating habits, um, if they used to eat a lot, all of a sudden they're not eating. If they used to eat a little bit, all of a sudden they're eating a lot. Um, and along with some of the eating disorders that can occur from dealing with verbal abuse is, you know, the bulimia, um, and anorexia, where they don't want to eat, bulimia when they eat, but they regurgitate it and stuff like that. They have different feelings and emotions about food. And so that can be a sign of someone who was verbally abused or experiencing word hurt. Um, and then stress. When you see someone visibly stressed about interacting with, someone that they normally interacted with, all of a sudden they don't want to um, interact with that person as much. They don't want to talk. Um, they don't want to be in that person's presence for very long. That's you know that's also a sign. So when you see these things occurring in your loved ones, friends, even if it's occurring in you, um, you have to look at that and investigate it further. You might be suffering from verbal abuse. And so, what are some things that you can do to combat verbal abuse? Um, First of all, you have to take note of it. You have to be, aware of it when you are around um, someone that verbally abuses you often. You kind of you don't want to really be around that person, but you have to. So you try to avoid it, or you start getting you know that feeling in your stomach, that feeling of dread. You might get nervous, anxious. Oh my gosh, I gotta go into the office and talk with my supervisor. I really don't want to do that because I know how he or she can feel. All of those things, let you know there's something about that person that you really don't want to interact with um, for any period of time, really. But because you're in some kind of relationship with that person, you have to interact with them to some degree. It could be a work relationship. It could be a marriage, or romantic relationship. It could be you live in the same household with that person. But because of whatever the nature of the relationship is, you can't readily avoid that person altogether. And so, but you become aware of how you feel about when you have to go and interact with that person. So make note. I'm sure there are some people who you enjoy talking to, you enjoy hanging around, hanging out with, you enjoy that. And then there are other people who you're like, so and so is coming over. I got something to do, or I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to come out to that event. You're avoiding that person because you don't want to um, deal with or relive those hurtful words. Uh, and so make note, think about all of the people that you are in some kind of relationship with. There are some that, you don't want to interact with as much as others, and just look at why. Could be you were verbally hurt by that person, or that person might feel that you verbally hurt them, and that's why they're avoiding you. So, look at, yeah, where is so and so? I used to see her every day. We used to have lunch, and now, I haven't seen her in a while. I wonder what's going on. When I call her, she's not answering the phone. What's going on? You could have unawarely said something, or hurt that person, and they just didn't tell you. They just withdrew themselves from you. So um, those are signs of verbal abuse, verbal hurt. Um, and so, what to do when you find that you are in a situation, or you have uh, someone that uh, verbally hurts you like that? If you can, confront them. The next time you're in a situation with them, and you have to talk with them right then and there, as soon as they say something that you deem as harmful, let them know, you know what, stop right there. That particular exchange was harmful. I found that harmful. Just 1 second. I think someone is at my door. Hold on 1 second. I'm so sorry. And no one else is here to open the door. I'll be right back. Hello? Oh, okay. Oh, hi. There we go. I'll see you. Thank you. Okay. Sorry about that. The UPS guy decided he's going to deliver something, and no one told me that UPS was coming. Okay. Anyway, I'm so sorry about that. But yeah, so the things that you can do to combat verbal abuse. Uh, First thing is, if you can, confront the person. Let them know. Try to let them know at the moment it happens. But even if you were not able to let them know at the moment that it happened, you can go back to them and say, when we were talking the other day, I found some of the things that you said hurtful, offensive, and this is why. Let them know that, their words were offensive. Because sometimes people simply don't know. And if you don't let them know, then they're going to continue on saying hurtful stuff, or talking to you in a way that you find offensive. So the first thing is to let that person, or let someone know that you have experienced that. Second thing, if you're in a verbal exchange, an argument, or what have you, that it escalates, and hurtful words start flying, try to stop talking and remove yourself from that situation. When you stop talking and start to remove yourself, that at least lets the other person know, okay, something happened here, there's an issue. Um, I don't know why she stopped talking and just ran out the room. It makes that person at least aware that something happened that made that person react that way. So we have let the person know, speak up, let the person know. Um, I received that and it was an offense to me. The second thing is if you're in the conversation and it's too much for you, stop talking, remove yourself right away. Um, the third thing is find someone to talk to about the hurt. Find someone you can trust, someone that will hear you. Find someone to talk to about the hurt because that way you get a chance to acknowledge the hurt and release it. You won't sit there and keep holding on to it and then get re-injured over and over and over again. Um, and then uh, lastly, get help. Get help. Um, you can see a therapist. You can see a coach. I'm a mental health coach. You can see me, and we can help you move through the hurt so that you can move forward. You won't be paralyzed by that hurt. Because what happens is what verbal abuse is that it impacts you in such a way that your self-esteem decreases. Your self-confidence decreases. You have trouble making decisions. You don't take charge in situations like you should, and so you also wind up succumbing or submitting to um, this this person that's abusing you, and that's not what you should be doing. So those are things that happen if you that could happen if you continue to allow the verbal abuse to continue. It winds up harming you in the long run, even in the short run. Now, if you discover that you engaged in verbal abuse where you are the abuser, then again, you have to try to rethink your words, rethink the usage of the words, and the timing so that you can stop doing that. You can correct your behavior. Um, when someone confronts you and lets you know that you said something that was offensive, if you didn't mean to offend them, correct it. Make amends. If you said something and you meant to offend them, um, explain that doesn't correct it, but at least the other person might, understand why you said that. But again, try to make amends and correct your actions, your behavior, and be mindful of the words you say, when you say them, and how you say them. And get help. Sometimes being, using words that hurt often is sometimes it's a habit. It's a habit that we learn from a very young age. Like I said, sometimes parents do it to small children. And, you know, it keeps going on and on and on and on. So, um, though that's what I have for you today. Um, are there any questions? Any?
Okay. Their comments.
Okay.
Um, Danielle Caesar said, I taught my children to stand up for themselves. And she said, we don't realize that it's verbal abuse until we get out of the relationship. Miss Shan
Right.
said, what if they are not willing to see or admit that what they did was harmful?
Good question. Good question. If they're not willing to see or admit that what they did is harmful, that lets you know something about whether or not you want to continue to interact with them. A lot of times, people don't see or won't admit that, okay, I caused you harm, because they feel like, they might feel justified in it, or they might accuse you of being overly sensitive. If that happens, then that lets you know that that person does not respect you for who you are and what you're about. And they think that it's okay to continue in that behavior. If they're not willing to correct their actions, maybe you need to rethink about whether or not you want to continue to interact with them or be in any kind of relationship with them. Because if you came to them and let them know, I found your statements or your actions offensive, I found your statements or your actions hurtful, and that person, just disregards it or is not willing to admit, that person doesn't care about you as much as you think. And so you have to, you know, think about whether or not it's time to terminate that relationship or that interaction. So um, that's how I would deal with that. Did I answer your question? Are there any more questions?
There are no more comments or questions. Miss Flo Chan, did Miss Love answer your question? And Natalia Francois is here.
Oh, hello. Hello, Isaiah. How are you? Thank you for tuning
Miss
in.
Miss Lee is here.
All right. Hey, Miss Lee. How are you? Thanks again for tuning in. I know today's topic was kind of close to home, and it's a heavy topic. Um, but for that reason is why I brought this to you to share. We need to talk more about verbal abuse because of it impacts us so. Like I said, we learn or we first experience verbal abuse a lot of times at home from a family member. It could be our parent, it could be our sibling, or it could be another relative. But it's important for us to understand that words do hurt, and we have to deal with the hurt that comes from, when someone close to us, but especially says things that hurt us. We we carry that hurt long after the verbal exchange. We tuck it, in our hearts or in our minds, and it literally changes the way we think of ourselves, changes our actions, And so verbal abuse is very, very harmful. And once we become aware that we have experienced verbal abuse, we then have to confront and deal with the hurt of that and take measures to heal from that. And so, but the biggest and first step is acknowledging that uh, you have experienced verbal abuse. You have experienced someone has, or some people have said things to you that is still lodged in your mind or in your heart that hurt. And every time you think of those words, that hurt comes up. And and so you would have to try to heal from it. But you can't heal from something that you are not aware of, willing to deal with. So the first thing is think of those words, those instances that um, are lodged in your mind that hurt you. Like I have one word that was said to me over and over again. The word lazy. I didn't realize how much I disliked that word, and the word was used to describe me by someone that was close to me, family member actually, and it was not true. But the person was using that word often to cause me to work harder and move faster. Sometimes I would be at a point of exhaustion and want to sit down just to take a break and rest. And when that person saw me sitting down and resting, they didn't want me to rest. So they would say, "Oh, you're being lazy. Get up. You didn't finish." And, I would get up and resume, you know, doing whatever it was, cleaning or what have you, and I would do it, try to do it with more energy, even though I was tired. I was exhausted. Try to do it with more energy to try to prove to that person, no, I'm not being lazy. I just was sitting down because I was tired, but I didn't, say to the person, oh, I don't like that word. I wasn't even aware that I didn't like that word. I wasn't even aware how much I disliked that word. But I internalized that word and started thinking, oh, I must be lazy, or I'm feeling lazy now. And why am I being lazy? And that word would come to mind every time. I noticed every time I wanted to just sit down or lay down and not do anything. And one day it occurred to me, well, why is it that you don't want to do anything today? Like, who does that? Everybody does something every day. Why is it that you want to have a lazy day? You don't want to do anything. And I go through that periodically. And I'm like, one day I was, my mind was like, we're not doing anything today. We're not doing anything. We're not even going to think hard today. And I looked at it and I'm like, well, why am I feeling this way? And I discovered I was tired. I was exhausted and I needed to rest. And I noticed every time I got in my lazy mood, it was because I was tired. I wouldn't say to myself, oh, you're tired, you need a rest. I would say, oh, I'm feeling lazy today. That's me internalizing what that person called me or said to me. That's me internalizing it to the point where I'm thinking, oh, it must be true. I must be lazy because I, get to a point where I have my days where I don't want to do anything at all. And that's lazy. And because that person would say that to me over and over and over again, I really started believing, oh, I must be lazy. I must be lazy. And I would, not do anything for that day or what have you. And then the next day, I would get up and I would be working twice as fast and twice as hard and, keep doing that until the next time I'm exhausted. And then I'll have another lazy day. And I realize, oh, it's not that I'm lazy. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. And I keep wearing myself out, trying to prove to myself that I'm not being lazy, And so once I came to the realization about that word, then I understood that, okay, I don't like that word. That word is not a word that would describe me. And so I don't have to react or continue to react to that word like that. I have nothing to prove to anyone. I am who I am. Yeah, I know as long as I know who I am, I'm all right with that. But lazy is not who I am. So yeah, thank you so much for that comment. But yeah, now I know what the word lazy means, and that word I no longer use it to describe me because now I see that that's not true. So, um, as far as going back to the person to tell them that, I didn't like them the way they, that you verbally abused me, and using that word, I haven't done that with that word, but um, I have, had interactions with that person and let them know, look, I'm not going to stand here and let you continue to abuse me verbally. You're wrong, and I'm not going to receive that any longer. I don't have to, and I choose not to. And when I did that, the person continued to try to verbally abuse me because that was a habit of his. But at this point, but I didn't receive it. I knew that I didn't have to receive the hurt from that. I didn't have to hold on to the hurt from that. And so I got empowered just from being able to say, I'm not going to receive the verbal abuse from you any longer. You verbally abused me long enough. I'm not taking it no more. So either you're going to talk to me like a human being or we're not going to talk. And just me saying that, it empowered me so that I can still interact with that person, knowing that that person at least has to be mindful of how he speaks to me. And that brought it to that person's attention, even though they didn't want to admit it. They know that at least that's the way I feel when you use certain words or you talk to me a certain kind of way, and that I'm no longer going to allow you to talk to me that way. Anytime you take that tone or use those words, I'm going to end the conversation, or I'm going to stop you and to give you a chance to correct yourself if you want to continue to talk. That's what I do. And that's what you can do to stop that verbal abuse. But I say all of that to say that first you have to acknowledge it. You have to become aware of it so that you can speak on it or you can take actions to heal from it. Um, and so thank you for those comments. Are there any more comments?
Miss
Questions?
Shine said, yes, you answered her question. Thank you. And she
Oh,
said,
you're
many
welcome.
lives impacted starts at home and even at church. Joali said, that
Yes,
is true. You remember no matter how long it's been. Miss Shine said, I know people who are walking around with hurt for years.
yes,
And Joanne
yes.
said, I, I like do nothing days.
Right, right. Yeah. Um,
and and then Miss Shine said, I have experienced that too, Miss Love. Praise God, I'm liberated.
yes, yes. Um, you don't have to continue to carry the hurt all your life. Yeah, it happened, and it might even happen very, very long ago, but you can make a decision now that you are aware of it. You can make a decision. You know what? I don't have to carry that. I don't have to carry the hurt of that. Yeah, that person said that to me, but that's not true. Or, yeah, that person said that to me and it was hurtful. And it might have even been true at that time, but that's not who I am today. Or that's not who I choose to be today. Well, I decide I'm not going to be that person any longer. And so you change the narrative, you change the story, okay, when you do that. And you have the right, you have the power to change the way you think about yourself, and you can help other people to change the way they view you in doing that. The Word of God lets us know that we can be transformed by the renewing of our mind. And when you allow God to renew your mind about yourself, and you make the decision to be who God says you are, not even who you think you are, not even who they say you are, but God says you are, then you the Lord can empower you to be that person, to be that person. And it won't really matter what others say about you or what they say to you, uh, because you are now making the choice. I could words, I can either receive them or not. And once you realize I don't have to receive everything that's said to me, I don't have to I don't have to even take it in. I can censor it in my mind. I can not receive it. And when you decide to not receive those words, or you see that those words aren't true, or you don't allow those words to impact you, then where's the hurt? You've deflected the hurt. You've rejected the hurt. You've prevented those word fiery darts to penetrate your breastplate of righteousness. You did not allow those words to get to you because you held up your shield of faith. So that's how you combat and heal from verbal abuse. So thank you, Miss Chan, for your comments, Miss Lee. Thank you. But Words are powerful. Words are powerful. And so we have to be mindful in how we use them, uh, when we use them, and who we direct them to. And we also should caution others in how they use words directed at us. Okay. So, but words are powerful and they're not to be taken lightly. They should not be tossed around and just thrown anywhere. You know, we need to be mindful of our words. The word of God lets us know that death and life is in the power of the tongue. We can say something that would speak life or encourage another person, and with that same tongue, we could say something that can cut that person down so that it's very difficult for them to recover. We can kill somebody with our words, kill their spirit. So, yes, um, and it happens even in church. You are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Um, and we need to be mindful and we need to take a stance and not allow that to continue to happen. The Word of God tells us that we need to be mindful of our tongue. We need to, you know, bring it under subjection, you know, and we need to listen more and talk less. That's why we got 2 ears and 1 mouth. We even got 2 eyes so that we could see the situation, then listen before we speak. So, yeah, thank you for those comments. Any more questions, comments,
More
thoughts?
comments. Miss Lee said, I have decided not to let people with their own issues make me feel bad. God created me so I know that I am wonderfully and beautifully made in Jesus' name.
Amen.
And Miss Wright said Romans 12, verse 1.
All
And
right now.
Miss Chang and Miss Lee said, Amen. She said, that's right, Miss Love. True.
Amen.
And Miss Chang said, reject those fiery darts. The
Yes,
words we speak manifest.
that's right.
And Miss Lee
That's
said,
right.
we, we used to say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will not harm me. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, yeah,
Speak good, speak good, see good, speak bad, see bad. Miss Shine
yeah,
said.
that's true. That's true. I know I learned that when I was in elementary school, that particular saying. And I used to say it, you know, but I used to say it like to um, uh, block or cover my emotions about whatever the kids was teasing me about. But that's a false statement. And I don't know why we still say it, but it's not true. We know today that it's not true. Words do harm. That's true. Speak life. Speak on good things. Uh, talk to each other lovingly. Lovingly. Even if you have a disagreement, it's okay. But when you're discussing the disagreement, let there be love in the room. You know, let there be love in the room so that even if you can't agree, you can express yourself without hurting and harming someone else. Because the impact from hurtful words is long lasting. It's long lasting. So, are there any more questions, comments? This is a really deep conversation.
Miss Chang said Proverbs 18, verse 21, and she said, Amen.
Amen.
Yes, amen.
Amen. Thanks, Miss Chang. Anyone else? Any questions and comments?
No more questions or comments.
All right. All right. Well, thank you all for just allowing me to share and tuning in. Thank you for your questions and your comments. Thank you, Miss Chang, for the scripture. So throwing the word right on out there. That's right. And just to let you know how powerful words are, the word of God is the most powerful of all words. And so when we use those words can heal, can edify, can strengthen. So we should use those words and incorporate the word of God in our vocabulary. Amen. So, but thank you all for letting me share and interacting with me today. Feel free to like the video, share it, because we need to continue to have these conversations. Again, I'll be talking about different kinds of hurtful exchanges on Mondays. That's my series for this month in honor of October being a domestic violence month of domestic violence awareness. And so tune in again with me. I'll be here again next week, Monday, and I'll be discussing and sharing with you, and you can interact with me about other kinds of hurtful exchanges. And so, thank you so much. Thank you for those who were with me yesterday, and who've been with me all the while. Thank you, Miss Lee. Thank you, Miss Chang, for being a regular audience members. Thank you for your contributions to this virtual chat discussion. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you that are watching and just in the background, a little too shy to make a comment. But thank you to you as well. Again, these programs are what you make it. You are a very, very important part of these exchanges. I personally love to interact with you. I look forward to it every week, and I'd just like to thank you for showing up every week. And just allowing me to share, and you sharing with me as well, and we sharing with each other. Thank you, Ms. Griffith, for providing this awesome platform called Aunt Cece's Kitchen. Thank you. We thank God for you and making sure that week after week it is here, and available to all of us. And if you would like to share, you have some information, you have an expertise you want to share with the rest of us, you too can come on the show and share, and Miss Cece will let you know just how you can reach out um, to her and let her know, and you too can be on this broadcast and share. Again, I'm Thais Love. I'm a mental health and wellness coach for Dunamis Sound Mind Services. If you have questions, you have comments, you have need of my services, feel free to contact me at dunamissoundmind@gmail.com. You can reach me. I'm on Facebook as well, Dunamis Sound Mind Services. On Facebook, I'm on Instagram as well. Or you can take a look at my website, DudamisSoundmind.com. Um, Also, you can call me. You can call me. I'll answer. And my telephone number is 718-576-8110. Again, thank you so much. Thank you all for your feedback, even after the show. Thank you so much because uh, your input is vital and it encourages uh, us to bring forth, things that you want to see and you want to know and you want to discuss. So thank you again. Thank you again, Ms. Griffith, for all that you do. Thank you to everybody that tuned in, and I'll see you again next week, Monday at 10 a.m., where we're going to continue talking about hurtful exchanges. And those of you who tune in on Sundays, I'm here again on Sundays, 1 p.m., where I talk about different things with regards to the Word of God, different life situations, and the Word of God. Uh, I'm in a series now on Sundays where we talk about godly relations. Yesterday we talked about godly relations when God reaches out to you. This Sunday, well, next Sunday, a week from yesterday, that Sunday, we're going to be talking about godly relations and talking about it in regards to when we reach out to God. Okay, so stay tuned. So have a blessed week, and thank you so much again.
Okay. I want to thank everyone who has been in the chat. Natalia, Francois, Danielle Caesar, for China
Hey,
Gina,
Daniel.
Miss Joanne Lee, and to those that was in the background. I thank you all for it, and I hope you guys keep continue watching on Sundays and Mondays. And don't forget to like, comment, and share. And share with someone who you know can benefit from our virtual interactive lives.
Yes.
Have a lot of very informative information that someone can use. So share it, post it everywhere you
Yep,
can. I'll
that's right.
appreciate it. Okay, I want to say thank you to Mrs. Thais Love for presenting every Sunday and Monday. And for
Thank you for
those,
having me.
you're welcome. And for those who've been supporting, like Miss Thais said, all the while. And for those who've been sitting in the background, I thank you all. I wish you all a great day and a wonderful week ahead. And I hope to see you here Sunday coming and Monday for more virtual interactive lives. Stay tuned, and we're having some more talks
Yes.
coming up. So stay tuned for those virtual talks and interactives. We'll see you back here again on Sunday and Monday. A great day to everyone and a blessed week ahead. Bye, everyone. Bye, Miss Love.
Yep.
Thank you, Miss Love. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you, Miss Griffith. Bye bye. Bye bye,
Bye.
everyone.